everyone. Welcome back to Shadow Ban with Safe Slut, the podcast where I talk about whatever I want. And also the podcast where I talk about all things taboo and stigmatized that would get me deplatformed on Instagram. So today we're going to talk about, surprise, herpes. So I'm going to pull a little chaperone here today and read from my little journal. And we're going to talk herpes facts, misconceptions, and I have a lot of questions from the audience today. So basically, we're just going to talk random herpes facts, everything that you probably don't know about herpes that you were absolutely not taught in sex ed. Um, so let's start off with, I feel like in the last few episodes, which obviously you've definitely already listened to or watched, but I'm going to probably repeat some of the same information just because this one's going to be like very information heavy. So hopefully it's not kind of boring, but it's not going to be. It's going to be so much fun. Okay, so I feel like to start off with, most people are like concerned on like how do I even get tested for herpes, because you will soon to find out that herpes is not included in the standard STI panel. And as of last year, over 1 in 5 people in the world ages 14 to 49, so over 1 in 5 people have genital herpes. So it's everywhere. But since it's not on the STI panel and it's usually asymptomatic, most people have it and have no idea. So if you want to get tested for it, how do you do that? So if you have what you think is a symptom of an outbreak, you can get it swabbed. So that will tell you like pretty quickly, like while you're still in the room, if you're negative or positive. If you don't have any symptoms, but you want to get tested for it, you can get a blood test. So this will test for antibodies. So if you think you were exposed and like 2 days later you go and get tested, even if you do have it, it's probably going to show up negative. So on the blood test, because it's testing for antibodies, it takes like 1 to 3 months for antibodies to build. So it will give you a false negative. Um, and there's also a lot of false positives with herpes. The test is just kind of faulty. I don't know why, and I don't know why they haven't just fixed it. But now that there's literally no funding for STI research anymore, we're probably not going to get that answer. So we just got to stick with, unfortunately, not knowing, but just assuming that like most people have it and like that's okay. Um, and a lot of doctors will tell you no if you ask to get tested for it, if you don't have any symptoms. So this is because the test is really faulty. And they're like, if you have it, but you're asymptomatic, the psychological impact of the diagnosis is worse than actually having it. So they're kind of like, it's fine if you don't know. Like, it's just, they're kind of like, everybody has it, like, it's okay. Which I feel like if they're going to go ahead and do that, then at least just say, we're not going to test you for herpes, but you probably already have it and it's okay. And like, don't stigmatize it anymore. I think that would do a lot, but that's okay. Um, and then if you do get tested for it and you are positive and you want to go on medication for it, you absolutely can do that. But a lot of doctors will tell you no. If you don't get a lot of outbreaks, they're like, it's pointless to take it. So the medicine for it is Valtrex. You can take it when you have an outbreak and it will help speed up the healing a lot faster. Or you can take it daily. So that's going to help reduce the amount of outbreaks you get and the amount that you shed the virus. So I feel like if your concern is transmitting to partners, which is usually everyone's concern, like feel free, go ahead and take it. If it like works through your bodies, you don't have any reaction to it, like there's no harm in doing it. It's just like an extra layer of protection. I forget the numbers because I'm like not a mathematician, but it does reduce it like really significantly. Um, and another thing about herpes that I say all the time is cold sores are also herpes. It's the same virus, just a different location. There's a lot of strains of herpes out in the world. So there's also mono, chickenpox, shingles, genital herpes, cold sores. There's probably like a few more that I'm missing, but those are the main ones. And it's all herpes. So people only stigmatize when you have it genitally when it's just a virus that you get because you were hot and sexy and had sex. You can still get it when using protection. because it's transmitted skin to skin, not through fluid. It will still help reduce the risk. So still use it, and obviously still use protection because of other STIs, pregnancy, etc. But just know that like you can do everything perfectly right and still get herpes, which is why there's no such thing as safe sex. There's only safer sex. Um, and so yeah, so a lot of people are really concerned on like how it spreads, and it's skin to skin contact. It's not like you're gonna get it from a hot tub. You're not gonna get it from like a towel, sharing a bathroom with someone. Like that's not like you need like skin to skin contact. Also, like obviously it spreads genitally or orally. If you were going to get it in like another body part, like some people will get what's called herpetic whitlow, is when you get them on your hands. I've heard people get it in their eyes, what have you. But you need a mucous membrane there for it to transmit to that body part. So you would have to have like a cut on your hand for it to, and like it has to have direct contact, um, and a cut on your hand for that to transmit that way. So it is like a little bit more unlikely, but it does happen. I think it's like a lot of nurses or like massage therapists, people who are like using their hands on people, end up being more likely to get it. I have so much information written down here. Oh my God. Okay. Um, so those are just like some of the main facts. I want to talk about the stigma and where it came from. So, herpes has been around since before humans. So, it's literally like so old. It's not going anywhere, unfortunately. Um, but what can go is the stigma. So, basically, so a lot of people think that the stigma came from pharmaceutical companies like in like the 70s pushing Valtrex, so they want to take money, which I think is partially true, but the main thing is the media. So in 1982, Time magazine came out with this insane, unhinged article called Today's Scarlet Letter, Herpes. And let's open up the page. And so basically, it was just like fear mongering. Like it probably had like I'm sure like this had something to do with like some sort of religious thing pushing like abstinence. It was like post 60s like sexual revolution, so they're like now we got to get back to back to being like prudish again. And so yeah, so the article's just like unhinged. There's a lot of false information here. Obviously when I got herpes I had to deep dive and find out where the start of the stigma came from, and this is it. Yeah, it's really intense. I'll read a little passage. I think I got this on like eBay or something. I don't know how much it was, but um so so one quote says, herpes is a puzzle, an enigma. The medical community the medical community doesn't do very well with viruses anyway, and with this one our bodies aren't able to give us any assistance in killing it. It's all by itself, says New York group therapist Dominic Riccio. Dominic Riccio, herpes has changed the uneasy balance for sex between sex for pleasure and sex for commitment. People are beginning to realize that romance is what relationships are all about, Riccio says. They're disillusioned with free sex and terrified of getting herpes and having it forever. Many swingers have dropped out because of herpes, and a trip to a prostitute is a high stakes gamble. Oh my God. Okay. I'm gonna try to find any. Ooh. In a monogamous relationship, the unsuspecting person who picks up herpes from a partner is hit with a double whammy: evidence of betrayal and a lifelong disease as a memento of the event. Okay, I'm gonna stop it right there. So herpes can live dormant for a long time. So if you are in a monogamous long-term relationship and someone ends up testing positive or getting an outbreak, it doesn't mean they cheated. Maybe they did, but it can just live dormant. So this is being really extreme. Um, Many people who contract herpes go through stages similar to those mourning for the death of a loved one: shocked, emotional numbing, isolation, and loneliness. Okay, this is also probably still true because I know when I was diagnosed, that's the vibe that I was feeling. But it shouldn't have to be. And like articles like this are just making it worse. So I'm sure you could find it online if you want to read it, or you could buy it on eBay like I did. Okay, so now let's talk some herpes misconceptions. So the first one I wrote down that, like, honestly, like, there's some truth to it. Only sluts get herpes. There's some truth to that because I got it and I am a slut. So like I get it. Like, you know, but as I said before, you can be in a monogamous long-term relationship and still get it. You can get it from your first sexual partner, you can get it from your 50th, you can get it from uh a play party, you can get it from, I don't know. Like you can just, like, you're just going to get it. The more you have sex, like the more it's like just like likely it's going to happen, and that's okay. That you do the best you can, you get tested, you have conversations with partners about your health, practice safer sex, and just understanding that sex is always a risk and herpes happens and that's okay. But we're just here to be safe sluts. Um, I think a lot of people, when they get diagnosed, they're like, I can never have casual sex again. Because for me, when I was diagnosed, I was like, okay, I'm sure I'll find someone who like will accept this. But can I still be a slut? And I think that's kind of the drive for my brand. That was one of the initial things that I wanted to talk about. Because I was like, yeah, I still want to be able to go to play parties, or I have a lot of clients that I do support calls with who are polyamorous, get diagnosed, and they're like, how can I still be poly and do this? Yeah, how can I still be a slut? How can I have casual sex? You can do all of these things while being herpes positive. The main thing is just communicating with partners. And I think we should all just be communicating more about everything. So you can definitely still be casual and be herpes positive. Like you can totally still be a slut and have herpes. You're just going to be a safe slut. As I said before, it's really transmitted skin to skin. So you can't get it from towels, sharing a bathroom, hot tub. I'm trying to think of like other wild things people have said to me that they're like, that's how it spreads. And I'm just like, no. Skin to skin contacts. Another thing that people usually assume too is that they assume that if you have it genitally, it's HSV2. So you can get HSV1 or HSV2 genitally. So don't just assume that it's HSV2 if you have it down below. But honestly, like I don't really think the strain it it's nice to know, but like it's not like they're it's the same thing. You have genital herpes regardless, so it doesn't really matter. But um, yeah, and then you when you get swabbed, it will just say negative or positive. It won't tell you which strain, but the blood test will tell you which strain you have, but the blood test won't tell you the location. So if you test positive for HSV1 and you've never had an outbreak, maybe you get it, maybe you have it orally, maybe you have it genitally, maybe you have it both. Who knows? So maybe one day they'll come out with something that tells you exactly and it's correct and there's no false negatives or positives. Um, so you are not constantly contagious. You're not constantly having an outbreak when you have herpes. I think there's this misconception that when you're herpes positive, that you're just like riddled in sores everywhere. I know when I got my sex education in high school, we were shown this like insane image of genital herpes. I remember being like, that looks intense. Like I absolutely don't want that. And that's where the fear mongering starts. When in reality, like my first outbreak, I had like one or two little sores on my clit. Like you wouldn't, if I didn't know to like look, it would have just gone away and I wouldn't have noticed. Um, and yeah, you are not constantly contagious when you have herpes. You're most contagious when you have an outbreak. And then if you're feeling the onset of symptoms, you're probably contagious at that point as well. So abstain. And then unfortunately, there's something called shedding where you don't have any symptoms, but you're contagious. So like kind of a bummer. Like there's just no way to know. But the longer you have herpes, usually it's like the less you'll shed because the longer you have it, the less outbreaks you're going to get. Unless there's like a trigger for you and you're getting frequent ones, it's probably there's something triggering it. Like for me, mine's like stress. So I had one 2 days ago. But it's basically gone now. So it's mine lasts like 24 hours. So it's yeah. That's my first one in like a year. I don't usually get them. Sometimes I'll get like the onset of symptoms and then nothing really happens. And the onset of symptoms that you can look out for, most people get nerve pain. So it's like this like tingliness. It kind of feels like a Charlie horse sometimes, like but like in a shooting pain kind of way, not just like in like one part of your muscle. Um, I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but usually it would be like leg, um, like genital region. Mine's usually like in my like leg. Some people will feel just like itchy in the area as well, or it can start to get kind of red. So those are just like signs to look out for if you are positive. But everyone also is going to have really different symptoms. Like sometimes people's outbreaks can just look like a paper cut. Like I had one time that looked like a paper cut, and I was like, huh, I wouldn't have known this was an outbreak if I didn't know that I had herpes. But that's not to say that every single thing that you have is a herpes outbreak. Because I think when we get it or we're like afraid of getting it, like every single like ingrown or anything, like we like freak out and we're like, oh my God, is this an outbreak? Usually once you have one, like you'll know the difference for the most part, where it will like, it's like painful. You'll have more nerve pain. Maybe your lymph nodes will be swollen. Everyone's unique. So it really depends. But you'll know your symptoms. I recommend writing your symptoms and your outbreaks down and process of elimination of figuring out your symptoms. Um, okay, let's talk questions from the audience. So I went on Instagram and was just like, what do people want to know about herpes? So I got a lot of similar questions, which was good. That means a lot of people are curious about this. So a few questions were, should someone who gets cold sores always disclose or just when they have a cold sore present? I think that everyone should always disclose that they have herpes regardless of the location. So if who gets cold sores doesn't have one at the moment and then they end up making out with someone, there's a chance that they're shedding and that person ends up getting cold sores as well. And like over 2/3 of the world gets it. So it's like it is pretty easy to get. So I think that you should be, because I, who have genital herpes, always discloses even when I don't have an outbreak. And it's the same risk. So it's the same risk, but like one society doesn't really give a fuck about. The other one, society's like, oh my God, like if you don't disclose, like you're gonna go to jail. And like it's the same thing. It's the same risk. So it just people's perception of what cold sores are, they don't think that they have to disclose it. But I think due diligence, you should always say it. Um, does having oral does having oral herpes make you resistant to genital herpes? No, you can get both. You'll get antibody, like you have antibodies from the cold sores, so like maybe it can help, maybe, but you can get both. Is it common to pass through oral? So if someone has genital herpes and someone is giving them oral, can they pass it? Technically, yes, it's possible, but the risk is really, really low. So, for whatever reason, when herpes is genital, it rarely transmits to the mouth, which is unlike when you get cold sores, it's really easy to transmit genitally, which is really interesting. I actually don't know why. That's just what I've been told. That's what I've seen in research. So I guess that's something like really nice to know, that it's like a little bit less likely. But if you are scared or you and your partner just want to have a little bit more protection, you can use dental dams or condoms. Um, Laurel's makes these really good dental dams that are like underwear, and if you go to the the link in my bio, there's a discount code. Um, is it safe to have sex when no outbreak? Sex is always a risk with whoever you are with. There's no such thing as safe sex. There's only safer sex. I do think to some degree it's safer to be with someone who knows their status, and like if they're herpes positive, but they know it, because we are understanding of our symptoms and are taking all of the precautions. So I think we're safer. We're safer sluts. How painful are outbreaks? They kind of suck. I mean, it depends. The first one's the worst. Usually that's going to be the most intense. And then they're going to be like less intense as time goes on. Like, as I said, I had one 2 days ago and I like still worked out. It didn't like it was fine. That's for me though. Everyone's different. Everyone's pain tolerance is different. So it really just depends. But I don't think it's that bad. But again, that's me. Some people are like, oof, I like had to call out of work. I just need to like stay home and like ice it. Like, so it's just gonna depend. But for the most part, most people will have the most painful one during your initial outbreak. How common is genital HSV1 to genital HSV2? So since more people are doing oral, which great, we love that, more people actually are getting HSV1 genitally because of the cold sore to genital herpes transmission. I don't know the exact number, but then I just saw research that the majority of new cases of genital herpes are actually HSV1. So very interesting. But again, I always just feel like the strain doesn't really matter. Like when people are like, which one do you have? I'm like, I have HSV too, but like I just have genital herpes. I don't know. And then how to approach play parties slash group play. I feel like I can quickly answer this one, but I feel like we should do a whole episode on this actually. But basically, I think of it in the sense of just disclosing to one person, you're just disclosing to more people. Again, you're doing it in a setting that's like you have to do it now because it's not like you're going on dates, you're just like you're there for a reason. But in my understanding, people in those settings are should be educated. If you're being in those spaces, I'm just like you're more like you're in the sex positive scene. Like ideally, you would think that everyone would be more educated on it. That's not always been the case, unfortunately. But I think it's just I kind of look at it the same way as when I disclose to one person. It's just sort of like, hey, I have this thing. Do you have any questions? This is what I'm doing to take precautions. Any questions? Pretty simple. Um, and that's all the questions we have for today. Testing 1, 2, 3. The new scarlet letter, herpes, an incurable virus, threatens to undo the sexual revolution.